Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Oh my God!
Estrogen levels peaking. It's like she's in heat.
When are you gonna grow up, man? Chicks love cars. If you want to get into their pants, you better have a nice, hot Ferrari.
She's my hot Ferrari. Besides, I love my Mustang, which is a plug-in hybrid. It gets 100 mpg.
Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! I love my eyes!
Welcome to episode 17 of Schlock Talk, ripping open the chest of crappy cinema with our surprisingly mannish hands and exposing the yellow and green blood inside since 2013. I'm Gabe.
I'm Alan.
I'm Paul.
I'm Joel.
I'm officially protesting being named in this podcast.
This is the Schlocker, formerly known as Craig.
Yes.
He's changed his name to a symbol.
It's just
Yes,
it's
it's a
just a
stop
cock and
sign.
balls. It's just a cock and balls.
So tonight's movie is R.O.T.O.R.
Why did you just say the whole
R.O.T.O.R.
acronym? No, not R.O.T.O.R. Don't abbreviate it. Say every single word.
I didn't write it. I actually didn't write that down.
Just a second.
Robots equal trash on roids.
So we're tonight we'll be discussing R.O.T.O.R. from 1988. It's directed by Cullen Blaine, and
Don't you mean bland?
yes.
Just to clear it up for the audience, R.O.T.O.R. stands for Robotic Officer Tactical Operation Research.
Otherwise known as a piece of shit.
The worst movie we've seen yet. Well, probably not worse than Vulgar.
Oh, it's worse than Vulgar. At least Vulgar, I remember something about clown rape.
See,
That's more than I can say for this film.
this is in a sense, as I had mentioned, that Samurai Cop had a very deceiving cover poster. R.O.T.O.R. had a very deceiving trailer. Because if you take a look at the trailer, it looks like something busting out of a garage and lots of fucking people dying.
Yeah.
And
When in reality, they just fallen asleep.
the description on is the Robotic Officer Tactical Operations Research. A prototype robot intended for crime combat escapes from the development lab and goes on a killing rampage.
Yay.
Again, just one big cock tease.
Yes, it is not that good. Well, Schlock Talk fans, I finally went and did it. I chose a movie, 1988's R.O.T.O.R., that I felt genuinely guilty about forcing my cohorts to watch. And for that, I am truly, truly sorry.
No, he's not.
Not enough.
I struggled for some time to come up with the necessary penance for each of my homeboys, knowing the swift retribution I would face this week if I did not rectify the situation.
Gabe, I can't sleep nights anymore.
Since we viewed the cinematic calamity that is R.O.T.O.R. For Craig, the solution was easy. I've had 2 weeks to produce the needed 1.5 liters of man lather necessary for him to properly shave his robust neck beard. My right arm may be in a sling now, with what my doctor calls the worst case of washerwoman's elbow he's ever seen. But Craig's hairless, luminescent neck is a sight to behold.
And it smells like sex.
Making things up to Paul was provided a simple solution as well. Hanging out under bridges and in railroad yards has provided plenty of access to nameless drifters. And when Paul came home last night to a 60-ish naked hobo in his workshop, lashed to a piece of 3/4-inch plywood and pumped full of enough horse tranquilizer for an entire college career's worth of date rapes, I probably don't have to tell you, dear audience, that in under 30 seconds, the claw hammer came off the workshop wall and his jean cut-off shorts could be heard hitting the floor. Godspeed, young master!
Gabe, you're forgiven.
And Paul's penis is also in a sling.
Alan and Joel, well, those were some tougher nuts to crack. Not only have I known them a good while less than Paul and Craig, but they're still both in their early 30s, and I have no idea what those kids are up to these days. After careful consideration, I had nothing to do but offer myself as their plaything, and while I am not gay, and will no doubt have years of reparative psychotherapy and several visits to the surgeon for anorectal reconstruction, if only to ensure that I have a butthole that doesn't look like a close-range shotgun wound. Because a lifetime of changing colostomy bags was a foregone conclusion once our night of passion was set in motion. And the 2 different strains of genital warts I now suffer from is merely a bonus.
Seriously, people, Jabba the Hutt flies people over his ass and drops them in it.
Yes, it's true. R.O.T.O.R is really that bad. Catholics have the confession. Japanese Shinto believers can make offerings to their ancestors at the closest shrine. Hell, even dirty-ass hippies can be absolved of their perceived sins by only eating tofurkey at Thanksgiving.
And they have to burn some sage.
I would think that technically those hippies could seek nourishment without stigma, eating tofiger, tofalpin, and even the occasional tofaby. Entirely guilt-free. I, however, will never likely be able to fully make up for having the guys sit through R.O.T.O.R. So that's my intro for R.O.T.O.R, you guys. That one came to me like really fast. Like last night, I wrote that like in 5 minutes. Sometimes I like pour over these for like an hour and a half.
It's crazy. He has like this psychotic
Really,
muse.
5 minutes. That's how long it took to them to write this script. 5 minutes.
And they took 3 of those minutes for a coffee break.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're not even talking like, oh, let's get this to editing. Nope, it was done in 5 minutes.
So R.O.T.O.R is a West Wind production, we find out during the credits, but as this movie progressed, I was definitely under the impression that whatever wind was involved stunk enough to lead me to believe that the wind came from somewhat of a more southerly direction, i.e.
Yes,
someone's ass.
Indeed.
There is some reading involved in this movie, as R.O.T.O.R feels compelled to tell us the day and time of most of the scenes as they play out. It also begins with an opening written narrative. Today's headlines: murder, rape, robbery, arson. Tomorrow's solution: R.O.T.O.R.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I guess if they're using today and tomorrow in the metaphorical tense or the metaphorical purpose, let's get on this tomorrow. We'll find a solution for all the things that are causing society to tear itself apart in the future.
I was under the impression that they were threatening society with watching R.O.T.O.R as scare tactic to get them off the on the straight and narrow path.
Tomorrow.
I'll love you tomorrow. It's
Don't
surely
be
a
R.O.T.O.R
gay
away.
old time.
And so right at the beginning, they are doing like a flying like a helicopter shot over Dallas, Texas, and there's all these weird like CGI buildings, like Tron.
It's
buildings
like
or
Tron. It's like there's some Technicolor thing going on
It's like
there.
a glowy building that looks like if editing screwed up a little bit more, it would just disappear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really strange. And so the first real scene in the movie is a couple driving in the countryside outside of Dallas, and they hear an explosion, and then they stop to find a guy dragging a woman's body onto the road. And then, so it's daytime when they pull over, and then nighttime almost immediately.
And that's just how long it takes cops to show up to.
Okay. And
It's
then-
because they had to drive like 120 miles to the scene of the crime.
Yeah. Now, had that been Alan, they would have just been waiting there.
He would have flipped them off. It would have cost him a lot of money.
And then, so some hillbilly guy comes up out of the woods and says he just saw the guy kill a cop. He says, "I seen him." And then the guy driving the car has to have 2 different people tell him to call the police because the guy dragged a dead body into the middle of the road. So the next
Not
scene,
a tip off normally.
yeah. The next scene, it says Friday, 7:30 p.m. And a detective has picked up the man who has the dead body, and we find out his name is Barrett Coldiron. And so then we have a voiceover narrative, and it says, "Barrett Coldiron, I'm a captain with the Dallas Police Department, head of the Tactical Operations Lab, and one of the leaders in police robotics. But now I am thought of as a modern-day Frankenstein." Yeah, it gets real philosophical
Police
and heavy.
robotics. I wish that was my fucking major.
I feel like I'm watching fucking Blade Runner.
He says, "But how do you stop a killing machine gone berserk?"
Police robots?
Yeah.
Alan, here is your ticket.
Jesus loves you, Al.
So a couple of police officers are interrogating...
You may not eat jalapeno poppers while you drive your vehicle.
Oh, jalapeno popper dipperinos.
Yeah, jalapeno, like
Dipperoos.
jalapeno cheese
Dipperoos.
dipperoos.
So the police interrogate Cold Iron, and he says, "For the record, last Tuesday my life was a lot simpler. He then says the following in flashback. A buttery morning sunlight painted a golden glow through the windows. So he's a real Renaissance man. Sure, the worst
Davy
Renaissance
Crockett.
man, but a Renaissance man nonetheless.
He was like the kind of guy who wrote the movie Renaissance Man.
Also, so this guy designed a developmentally disabled RoboCop and runs a ranch somehow.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I guess they're trying to hit hard home that despite the fact that this guy is like some technological guru, he lives way out in the country.
Yeah, and just to hammer home the fact that he is in fact a genius, we understand that he has in fact been able to program his coffee maker to turn on time.
Wow, that's pretty good.
He's still working on his VCR, however.
Yes.
It's because it's made in Japan. Goddamn un-American crap.
That's because when you talk like you have a mouthful of marbles, the director's going to have to feel the need to insert a lot of shit to make you seem more intelligent than you clearly are.
Well, it's bad enough they had a voice over his ass, too. I couldn't even get him to really talk.
So after he gets up out of bed, there's an extended shot of Cold Iron moseying out the front door and across the lawn. And although YouTube says it only took 37 seconds, I believe I have located a wormhole in space-time because the clock on my wall told me that from the start of this scene until the end, 11 minutes had passed.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's going over to admire like his fucking neighbor's horse. I don't know. Weirdo.
Yeah, and so he has some carrots and a cup of coffee, but he eats the carrot and gives the coffee to his horse. I see what you did there. Cold Iron.
Yeah, clearly
You're a tricky one.
Clearly
Cold
a
Iron.
mastermind who can design a cybernetic law enforcing entity.
And so he hops on his horse and he blows up a stump on the property using some sort of primer cord explosive, and it's completely obvious there's going to be a callback to
And this is when I fell asleep.
later in the film.
Alan was very comfortable on me the whole rest of the movie.
You are comfy, Craig.
I know.
It's okay.
And he lassos a stump.
He does, and blows it up
And it
because
blows
it's
up.
explosive primer cord. And so the next day it says Tactical Operations Lab, Thursday, 9 a.m. We find out that 10 years ago, Cold Iron founded the Dallas Tactical Operations Lab. And he says, sometimes it's hard to tell the boys from the toys. And I take back what I said about him being a poet earlier. And then we also find out that the lab's sister organization from Los Angeles is visiting to see the IA-1138 Endo chassis, because there's nothing more entertaining or cost-effective than flying in several scientists to Dallas to see a robot dance.
Okay, I also want to put out there that as Gabe's penance for making us watch this movie, the only reason he can explain anything in this movie is because we forced him to watch it 3 times.
It's true, I did watch
Three
it
times.
3 times.
If you've watched this movie, you can cry on the inside with the rest of us at the thought of watching it 3 times to get any plot out of this piece of shit whatsoever.
We did not force him to watch it 3 times. He did that on his own free will.
He's just sick like that.
We would have
Proves
beaten
that
him
There's
if he
something
hadn't.
wrong with Gabe.
Yes. He recommended the movie because secretly he did like R.O.T.O.R.
Okay, seriously.
I heard he's going to watch it again tonight.
Is he?
I actually bought
He owns
R.O.T.O.R.
this.
He did.
I own a rotor.
He paid cash money for R.O.T.O.R.
I got a 50-pack. I got a 50-pack
A
Mill
beer.
Creek DVD set for $4.52. So that's about 9 cents a movie, and I paid way too much.
He could have
For
watched
R.O.T.O.R.
R.O.T.O.R. for free on YouTube, but he liked it so much that he purchased it.
Watching it for free would have cost too much.
Yes,
And
it would have.
so after seeing R.O.T.O.R. do its demonstration dance,
Well,
the
we're
people from
missing
Los
the
Angeles-
most important part of this movie. Apparently, like, the guy lives in an entirely different fucking state because his commute involves the sun fucking setting and then rising again. A full 24 fucking hours of movie time goes by while this guy is trying to get to his fucking 9 to 5.
Don't worry, listeners. It didn't feel like 24 hours. It felt like at least 36.
Do I hear 72?
So time is slowing down for the viewers.
You didn't hear 68, thank God.
Square root of 69 hours to get to work. So the people from Los Angeles are kind of impressed by R.O.T.O.R., but one Debbie Downer raises his hands and he asks, rightly so, so this is what your research has led up to? A tin marionette?
And we should also explain that R.O.T.O.R in this stage is not an actual robot. It's a conception of a robot. It looks like someone, with crayons kind of created a Terminator skeleton on a Apple II and made it dance to some bad karaoke music, and that was the demonstration for R.O.T.O.R.
You were missing the first part, though. You have the freaking lobby with, the fucking moonwalking janitor or whatever walking in there, talking with the child molestation awareness robot in the fucking lobby.
Willard. Willard will come up later. We'll talk about him.
And Willard starts dancing with it. It's just pretty funny. What's that? Willard starts dancing.
I'm sorry. Willard is the robot.
Willard's the robot.
He's just racist because the
Shoe Boogie is the man of indeterminate ethnic origin with whom he is dancing.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. He's having a blast dancing with a robot.
So back to the film about R.O.T.O.R. To be fair, R.O.T.O.R does appear to be able to limbo quite well.
Yes, it just does some retarded stick figure yoga or some shit on screen for people.
Cold Iron tells the people there at the meeting that R.O.T.O.R can do anything from karate to full field combat. We will learn quickly that Cold Iron is a huge fucking liar.
Well, to be fair, he did have 20 years left to develop his ability to do anything. And he didn't do it in this portion yet.
We've already established in the film that he's a complete moron.
Right.
Eats the carrots and gives the horse the
Well, you can tell that, all the peroxide and whatever shit he put in his hair to make it glimmering blonde, that has damaged him in a permanent way. No. Not much unlike the blondes from our previous film.
What was his range? Did he say come next, he said come 30 years
or
it's
next 25 or 40 years or something.
And it was, but he says come 30 years or next fall. It's a pretty broad range. When is your project completion date?
Well, what he meant was next fall, but to the viewers, it'll feel like 30 years.
God will it ever.
Alan?
Speaking of his hair, we should probably put a warning out there that Schlock Talk isn't responsible for the damage done to your monitors that rendering this type of color this guy's hair does.
We're talking about Cold Iron.
It's an angry fucking blonde.
It is.
It burns the eyes.
Holy shit, that's a good insight, Joel. So anyway...
We really have to stretch the material of this movie, folks. Sorry.
So we learned that the metal in R.O.T.O.R has some sort of molecular memory, and Cold Iron says all it needs is a spark to come to life.
By we mean Gabe, because the rest of us had no fucking clue that happened. We were too busy screaming at this movie to end by the time this portion rolled around. Which was at about 17 minutes into the film, no doubt.
I was in an opiate-induced coma.
Cold Irony explains the metal itself has already been taught the movement by the particular electrical impulse of the induced corresponding command, and I, for one, do not believe this to be an actual sentence.
So basically, he just recited a Star Trek script.
And so a fat guy in the audience asks, "Who are we to create such a thing? Heroes or villains?" And Cold Iron said, "Is this
with great power comes great fuck it."
Foreshadowing anybody?
Someone says, "Is this high-tech rock and roll to the rescue of civil order?" This too is not actually the English language.
Did R.O.T.O.R have longer hair and a headbanging fetish that I didn't notice?
This is actually based on a Shakespeare play, right?
Right. And so at this point,
Midsummer Night's Crap. I'm pretty sure that's what this one was.
At this point in the movie, Cold Iron gets the first of the movie's many phone calls from Commander Bugler, and he is a dick. Also, his phone call by Bugler is actually about another phone call.
It's a long.
It's a phone call about a phone call.
Now that's meta.
And freaking Cold Iron is just sitting there looking like he's got chew in his mouth, and he looks seriously like Brock Sampson from fucking Venture Brothers.
He does.
Holy shit, yes it does.
And there was the guy in Samurai Cop that looked like him too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That guy gets around.
So Bugler says he spoke with Senator Donald D. Douglas, and he wants to know the progress on the R.O.T.O.R project, which we just found out is not going to be ready for like 25 years. We'll get to that guy, don't worry. And he tells Cold Iron that he wants R.O.T.O.R running now, or he's going to be sent to the state penitentiary. And Cold Iron tells him that if Bugler fires him, He'll make more noise than two skeletons making love in a tin coffin.
That's right.
And then he quits. Makes no sense whatsoever.
Cold Iron is
Oh
a
man!
badass.
So I didn't think he was gonna be throwing out some foghorn leghorn things. I say, boy, you're doing it all wrong.
And so on his way out of the station, Cold Iron runs into a character named Stratum, who Alan has pulled up right here. This is the guy that has that guy.
He looks like a penis with ears.
Stratum has somehow
Seriously, like He-Man's autistic little brother.
He somehow managed to cultivate a haircut that combines the mullet and the bowl cut in defiance of all laws of physics.
And good taste.
Cold Iron then calls his girlfriend, and she's apparently stolen several pairs of shoulder pads from the Dallas Cowboys and is smuggling all of them at once. We also meet Willard, the other project robot, and he asks the new project coordinator if he's going to finish his fries.
Oh, is this the talking mailbox?
Yes.
Yeah.
The child molestation
It's like the
safety
child
robot.
molestation safety robot.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's awesome.
Is it? It's kind of like that thing that was in the old Power Rangers show, right?
Alan's doing a screen cap of Stratum right now for the website. He's so great. Also, the guy that plays Stratum is the only person in the cast who has his actual picture on his IMDb page.
Wow.
Everybody else, no picture.
Is it
This
just
like
that
the only
photo
one
of him
they've
with
been
his...
in.
Is it that...
No, it's a newer picture of him, but it should be.
It should be that one. It's like, oh, that
Okay.
guy.
Well, obviously the guy has no shame with that haircut.
Right.
So,
Anyway, I love that guy. He's the best part of the whole movie, and he's in it for about 11 seconds. Also, he's terrible.
The guy's face looks like he said several times, "Yeah, suck his dick."
He looks like Sean William Scott. He looks like Sean William Scott with a chin job.
So Cold Iron meets with his girlfriend for a dinner walk in the park music montage.
Linebacker
Yeah.
training seminar.
Yes, / line. Exactly. Yeah, plus offensive line drills. And so back at the Tactical Operations Lab
At
computer
11:45 p.m.
center- Yes.
was this before or after the sunset for the?
So I was having the hell of a time trying to figure out who the guy that then takes over for Cold Iron is. His name is Huff Tailing.
Jesus.
Huff Tailing is the character's name.
That's an awesome name.
Who wrote the names for this?
The same guy who
They
came up
called
with
up
the...
like George Lucas. They're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, can you come up with some names for characters?"
Like, yeah.
Dexter Jetster. Dexter Jetster's a great name.
It's like the Simpsons episode where Homer turns into Max Power.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote that one wrote this movie.
The guy who made up all the names for the Monkey Island games.
Yes. And so Huff Tailing is the new director, and he's trying to figure out some of the computer stuff, but he can't get it figured out, even with Willard helping. Oh, Willard! They accidentally start in motion the activation of R.O.T.O.R. And at different times in this scene, Willard says, "My God," and "Jeepers," which I found to be incredibly funny for a robot to say.
It was based off Thelma? Is that what happened?
Jinkies.
Meanwhile,
Look,
another
a clue.
part of the lab, Shoe Boogie, is a given Indian name, apparently, is trying to pick up on a young Tina Yothers.
oh God.
Do you guys have that scene pulled up?
I just remember it being slightly
Yeah.
offensive even to me.
Yeah.
Science.
And it should be noted that although Shoe Boogie has no precedent and actually technically references no actual bigoted or culturally insensitive paradigm, he's one of the most offensive racial stereotypes in the history of film.
What you doing, girl?
He's an amalgamation of every crappy thing you can say about every crappy culture put into one human being.
And so Shoe Boogie puts
That
his
isn't
Walkman
gay.
headphones on part of the machinery. It's implied this also helps to activate R.O.T.O.R.
Wait, putting shoes on? What was that?
He
What
puts
was
his headphones like on the machinery and it like sparks. And so I think with the computer thing happening with Huff Tailing and Willard and then his headphones, that's what activates
that?
R.O.T.O.R.
Huff Tailing, Willard, and Shoe Boogie.
Hey, that's my law firm.
What the fuck, man?
Huff tailing Willard and Shoe Boogie.
You know, Shoe Boogie looks a lot like freaking Lawrence Fishburne with a fucking perm.
He looks
blackface.
very strange.
Yeah.
He looks really strange.
He's like
Lawrence Fishburne in blackface, really?
He looks like some freakish white guy who went into a tanning bed for way too long.
Craig is not racist, Craig.
And so Shoe Boogie tells...
Yeah, he is. But the email still Craig is not racist.
At gmail.com.
Gmail.com.
So he tells teeny others that once you go red, you never get out of bed. Is this offensive or not?
Wait, once you go red, is she a redhead?
No, he's saying that he's Native American.
No, he's not.
That's right.
No, he's not.
No, he is. He says something about
I don't care what he says.
Oh, okay.
No, he's not.
But she draws the picture that
Russian.
she says, I hate Shoe Boogie or whatever on her notepad, and he's got an Indian feather sticking out of his head. I think
And
the
you say I'm
implication
racist?
And Shoe
They
Boogie
take
I'm
a-
just telling you what's going on in the
They
movie.
take a tanned white guy and call him an Indian, and I'm racist.
And Shoe Boogie is not a friggin' Native American name. What does it mean?
Dances with Adidas? Is that like the better name for him?
Dances with robots.
So meanwhile, Cold Iron
I've
and
seen
his...
that Kevin Costner film. It was way over budget.
Yeah.
That's it.
That was, no, I know what you're talking about. It was Avatar, right?
Titanotaur.
Avatar, where that guy goes and gets immersed in that culture and becomes one of them.
No, that was Pocahontas.
That was Pocahontas? I thought it was Last of the Mohicans.
So meanwhile, Cold Iron and his women get back from the store, and he puts stakes on her hands for some reason. But then he has to go to the mini-mart to get charcoal. Again, I watched this 3 times so that I could follow this plot.
Is that like a pre-barbecue ritual?
And it's funny, why did he go home with
Handle
her?
my meat.
Well, obviously she bruised her hands when she was stiff-arming the running back in the game they were playing earlier.
I caught a pretty wicked pass. No, and it's funny because I couldn't remember the reason why he went home with her. I thought maybe he was getting his putting his warm steel. Cold Iron was putting his warm steel in her wet wallet.
Are you saying he took the gun out of the holster?
But then I was also thinking maybe he hasn't slept since his freaking 48-hour journey to work, and maybe he needed someone's house to crash at so he can get some shut-eye for the long voyage back.
You know, this is Kiefer Sutherland's favorite film. This is how they came up with the idea for the series 24.
Yeah.
Because they kept showing the
Cold
timestamp.
Iron had a 24-hour commute back and forth.
It's like, wow, all this shit can happen in one day.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't feel as long as watching one episode of R.O.T.O.R.
An episode? There's, dear God.
There's more.
There's a whole season. Joel, there's a whole DVD box set.
So Cold Iron has to go to the mini-mart to get charcoal. And while he's there, he runs across a robbery in progress, and he confronts what appears to be a fat, young Charlie Sheen, who's in the getaway IROC. He then takes out the lookout guy by pistol whipping him and then punching him in the dick.
Because Cold Iron's a badass.
And the stick-up guy has the clerk held hostage, and based on what she is wearing, she appears to have just emerged from her genie bottle so that she could cover the swing shift at the mini-mart.
She's no Barbara Eden.
And Cold Iron tells this guy, "Easy, greasy," and shoots him in the face.
Again, I'm not as racist as these people.
And there's one guy
He is a poet.
Yes. Easy, greasy. And so the clerk kung fu's the last guy, and Cold Iron asks her if she wants a job.
No, that was funny because she does like this roundhouse kick and then she stumbles forward like an old freaking lady trying to dance at her fucking 80th birthday party. And then goes in for another kill.
She at least has the pants on if she wants to hammer time later. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at those things.
So back at the lab, Hufftailing and Willard are fouling things up again.
Shoe Boogie there.
And R.O.T.O.R, now with skin, comes to life. He also sees everything in for a Pink. No wonder he's such a jerk. Also, he's not supposed to be ready for 25 years, but he has a locker with a jacket inside that fits him and a motorcycle that says Rotor to judge and execute.
Rotor optical
Nothing
system.
could possibly go wrong here.
The Rotor optical system is brought to you by Hello Kitty.
See, that's the point, right? That's the deceiving point, because after a while I'm like, okay, maybe they couldn't build it up to shit. Maybe these were just hardcore action writers that were going to make the most fucking phenomenal movie ever, and they just didn't really know how to build up the story. And so, enter the scene where fucking Rotor apparently has the superpower to walk through fucking chairs.
Yes. It's an auditorium full of chairs, and to show how badass he is, he walks through the chairs.
Yeah, something that like a fucking 10-year-old kid would do when they're fucking pouting because they couldn't have a slice of the wedding cake before the reception started.
Yes, I'm not sure if this shows how badass he is or how badly programmed Cold Iron has made him. He can't move around chairs.
There'll be more about that later. So meanwhile, Hufftailing and Willer are in the computer lab apparently blowing each other. Nah, I'm just kidding. They're only giving each other handies. I'm waiting for Paul to laugh at that one because he laughs at everything.
Wow.
Not this time.
HJs.
Gabe jokes fail even.
Joke fail. And so while all this is happening on a quiet stretch of Texas highway, a couple are arguing about feminism.
Yeah. She wanted to have a job which was not kosher with the new wave order of people who are now totally assholes.
Yeah.
Apparently society has become very masochistic.
Yeah.
A woman shouldn't work. She should be at home cooking barefoot, having my kids, and not saying a damn word, because that's what a good wife does.
But honey!
So the guy, Greg, he tells the girl, Sonia...
Not to be confused with Craig.
Yes,
Thank you.
Greg, not Craig. Thankfully, he dies very quickly, unlike Craig. He tells Sonia that it looks like she has both eyes coming out of the same hole. I have been able to verify this is not a real saying.
You're such a fucking cyclops, bitch. I don't know what to do with you.
And so Rotor sees the couple speeding, and he pulls him over and confronts Greg. And Greg tries to bribe Rotor, but he gets shot in the head. And Sonia ducks down in the car and accidentally honks the horn, which reveals Rotor's only weakness. He can't stand the sound of car horns.
And this is where it all goes downhill. Because you know what? You take RoboCop, you take fucking Terminator, and I guess, Judge Dredd. And you tie them all together with a fucking mustache. You should expect nothing but fucking insanity. We're talking the cover of Samurai Cop come to life in Rotor format.
What you find is that a little kid riding a bike with a squeaky horn on the front of it could actually take him out.
Yes. And so she backs into Rotor, and she speeds away, but Rotor hops on the Rotor cycle and chases after her.
Rotor cycle.
She pulls over, and Rotor tries to grab her, but apparently his window-reaching programming is still in the beta phase.
Damn that Windows, it never works for anybody.
Yes. And the cops find Greg's body, and he's clutching, Rotor's name tag that he, pulled off his chest as he fell to his death, after being shot. And Cold Iron gets a call from Sergeant Detective John Mango.
Sergeant.
I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, Captain Pineapple is out of the office.
Captain Admiral.
Lieutenant Eggplant is on vacation. I don't know what to do.
Carlos Apple.
Lieutenant Can of Mixed Fruit Cocktail. So Cold Iron realizes he has to go catch Rotor, and as he gets off the couch and leaves a note for his girlfriend, I had to wonder if he's not that good of a cop, because it is clear that all of her shoulder pads have been stolen. And Sonia stops at a payphone to call the police, and she agrees to meet them at Highway 919 South. And we also learn that Rotor has some sort of time travel sensor recall powers.
Some string theory built into his fucking brain.
We also learn how awesome Rotor is, that when they pulled him over, it was obviously night, and when she's making the phone call, it's the afternoon.
Right.
So she's been on the lam from this super-powered RoboCop esque creation for like 13 hours because he isn't really
And that
good.
will come up later. There's like the whole last like quarter of the movie is her essentially running away from R.O.T.O.R. while people do other things.
And like R.O.T.O.R. just doesn't fucking give up, you know? He's just, I want to fucking kill this girl. It's like, there's so much more mayhem he could be causing.
You know, he should be driving a short bus, not necessarily a motorcycle.
Hi.
A motorcycle.
You know I pull you over?
And so in addition to his...
I just wanted to say hi.
In addition to his...
I have a badge. I'm a cop.
In addition to his sensor recall powers, R.O.T.O.R. also wears some pretty sweet blue blockers. And so Cold Iron goes back to the lab and he gets an IM on the computer that tells him R.O.T.O.R. is online, and he then calls Willard on the phone. He calls a robot on the phone.
Yeah.
And Willard offers his resignation
I'd like to
from
offer
the
my
force.
resignation.
How could Willard, who apparently has a fully functioning uterus, considering all the whining and complaining he does, but they can't keep R.O.T.O.R. from killing people? Also, Cold Iron talks to Bugler again and tells him that R.O.T.O.R. is like a chainsaw set to frappe. And I had to wonder why they would hire someone to build police robots who thinks that chainsaws have a frappe setting. So Cold Iron is going after R.O.T.O.R. and to save Sonya. And Sonya goes into a diner and is quickly followed by R.O.T.O.R. And R.O.T.O.R. fries the bucktooth grill cook, who also has the same haircut as the guy from the Venture Brothers, by the way.
Brock Sampson.
Yeah, he fries the bucktooth grill cook on the flat top. And he tries to grab Sonya, but some redneck karate guys and a strong man fight with him, but he kills all of them. But only after one of these guys calls R.O.T.O.R. a faggot city cop, which I thought was pretty funny. And so she runs out into the parking lot, and a trucker tries to help her, but R.O.T.O.R. shoots the guy right after he says, "Pull that trigger," and they're going to be picking up pieces of blue dipshit all over the parking lot.
Oh,
I liked that line quite a bit. And then Sonya remembers and honks the horn, and just as Cold Iron drives up. And Cold Iron shoots R.O.T.O.R. a couple times and then shows him some sort of key that's supposed to, like, stop him.
It was a Bic razor.
Okay.
It was a magical Bic razor.
it was a sonic screwdriver / plot device.
So he was threatening to shave off his mustache, is what was going on.
No,
That was the magical MacGuffin.
no, I'm sorry.
That's where all his power lies.
And so Sonya gets away again and drives off in her car, and then Cold Iron calls her on her CB radio. And
They're like, we've used phones too much.
Yeah.
Even we couldn't get to cord that
I think
long.
this falls under phone call. This falls under another phone call.
We'll accept that.
They were thinking of doing Morse code.
Yeah.
But then they thought, you know what?
Smoke signals.
That
Yeah.
won't take long enough.
There's a deleted scene where Shoe Boogie does some smoke signals. Yeah.
Not only that, but I just noticed on IMDb they spelled Cold Iron's name like he's a fucking stripper. It's Cold Iron, only the I is a Y.
Yeah, that's how they spell the movie too.
I have it written in here just that way every
Yeah,
time
yeah.
in my notes. I probably have the word Cold Iron in here about
It was
37
like
times.
spelled out on a computer prompt somewhere in the movie that showed
yeah.
it that way.
And so
Remember, I was sleeping.
Yes, I know.
Sonya gets away again and drives off in her car, and Cold Iron calls her on the CB. And he tells her he needs to use her as bait to catch R.O.T.O.R., and she seems perfectly fine with this.
Well, she's already eluded him for the last 3 days. I mean, how much harder is it to do it for another few more?
She's like, look, this guy's following me around like a fucking puppy dog. I'm really getting bored with his shit. All right.
And he gives her instructions to meet him at the Dallas Lake at 4 p.m. the next day. And so Cold Iron calls Dr. Steele, some sort of she-male with a gray mohawk permanent haircut. And he tells Dr. Steele that R.O.T.O.R. is loose, and she, like, drops her bag in shock in this scene. And
I just want to point out that, like, Dr. Steele is the most normal name so far in this movie.
for the most abnormal character.
Yeah, pretty much.
Professor Cobalt.
And then there's a scene where R.O.T.O.R. goes into a mechanic's garage and like recharges himself with jumper cables.
Because,
And,
super androids, the best thing you can do for those is like stick some Duracells in the back of them so that they, they keep running that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also find out that music causes him to have the same reaction as a horn going off, because there's a radio playing in the place, and then the guy like sees him charge himself with the jumper cables, freaks out and runs out, and just as a truck is driving by, jumps in the back of the truck and they drive off. Makes no sense whatsoever.
That was convenient.
That's a perfectly natural reaction.
And so Cold Iron picks up Dr. Steele at the airport, and we quickly realize she is one of the strangest looking sexually ambiguous people of all time. And we find out that she designed Rotor's chassis that has like the memory molecules or whatever in it.
She looks like the kind of person who would play the villain against John Stamos.
Yes. She does.
You know what I bet? I bet you that this is actually a true story, and they just had to change the names to such crazy shit so they wouldn't get sued by the actual people this happened to.
Poor Shoe Boogie.
And so, for some reason, Cold
Mookie
Iron...
Killian. Poor Mookie Killian.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know. His name's Mookie.
I'm going to share a secret with all you guys.
Yeah.
This is Luffy's kryptonite.
Her face cream?
Anti-rape cream?
Basically, she was just humping my elbow, and Craig had showed me this before. It's great. You just open it up and she walks away.
You can edit that out of the podcast.
No.
We can leave it in.
By
I'm not gonna
opening,
take away
by
Paul's-
opening
filler.
up, do you mean the cheeks of your
She's all the way
ass?
over here.
I'm not going to take away Paul's fire.
She's like, no.
Paul's 1 moment of contribution to this
Yes.
podcast.
And so,
It's
for
the
some
funniest thing
reason...
I've said all night.
Yeah, if you hear that someone walk away and a sliding glass door open and close, it's not me going to go hi.
It's really not.
Because Alan's taken away Paul's use of non sequiturs.
He's also he's taken my drunk spot tonight.
So keeping in mind
That's
that
my job, Alan.
that Sonya is still running away from Rotor at this point, Steel and Cold Iron go to a hotel while Sonya's like driving across the countryside being pursued by somebody who wants to kill her.
Who really, really wants
and then
to
they
kill
sit
her.
down and have a heavy philosophical discussion about Rotor in the hotel. And he says that Rotor is a brain without a heart, a will without a soul. Sounds like the homespun, country fried folksy wisdom that probably got us onto this Rotor mess in the first place.
Sounds like it was guest directed by Kevin Smith.
At least he's not doing poems anymore. He like pulls out a gun. Go ahead, make my bed.
If you don't, I'll blow off your head. And you'll be dead.
I just made that up right now.
Did you hear what I said?
You better have, Fred.
Shoe Boogie is red.
This movie will not end.
I pled.
So they come to a decision. They don't say what it is, but they come to a decision about how to stop Rotor. Meanwhile, Sonya drives off the road, which causes Rotor to crash on his motorcycle, and she runs through the woods towards the lake. And Cold Iron explains the movie's plot to this point to Steel as they're driving, leisurely driving to the area where they're going to go try and stop this.
I realize we have bored the audience so bad that I must recap at this point so they have some fucking clue of why they have continued to watch this movie.
So they stop to talk and then slowly amble their way down to the lake with poor Sonya in mortal danger. And Rotor is just about to get Sonya, but Dr. Steele shotguns him in the back and then decides to wrestle him.
Yeehaw!
Cold Iron intervenes and tries to use the kill switch key, but Rotor shakes his head and says,
My mustache will stay on this time, bitch.
And Steel rips open Rotor's chest, and this causes everything to go into X-ray mode. And then Rotor squeezes her to death. And then Cold Iron lassos Rotor with the primer cord explosive, and this causes him to explode. Naturally. And this is the explosion that we heard at the very beginning of the movie, because if you didn't realize it, this is all being told in flashback. So he's describing a lot of things he couldn't possibly know had happened.
He's impressive that way. He's Cold Iron.
He is.
And this is when I woke up.
Well, we didn't get to the end yet. We still have the scene,
Yeah.
the vengeance scene.
So Cold Iron is released by the police.
I unfortunately did not time my nap long enough.
But as he's leaving the station, he gets shot in the back by Bugler, right in front of the police station. Nobody seems to be bothered by this.
Bugler has some brass balls.
He does. And after this, Cold Iron's nephew, who's supposed to be at Oxford but is clearly at a community college in the Southwest, gets a letter about his uncle's death, and then there's a little thing that's a preview of R.O.T.O.R 2, and she looks like Dr. Steele. And it says, like, R.O.T.O.R 2, God help us all.
God help us all indeed.
God help us all, because
the last thing
that
we need
means
is
a
a
sequel.
transgender R.O.T.O.R. That's what we've
R.O.T.O.R
got.
2 next fall or 25 years.
one of those two. So I think R.O.T.O.R made a better podcast than it did a movie, but barely.
Just barely.
Right?
We could have sitting here and belched on the microphone for 10 minutes, and we would have had a better podcast.
So I will never watch this movie again.
Me neither.
I'm thinking I might actually just throw the disc away, just in case somebody accidentally puts it in. It was to come on.
Oh my god.
Aren't there other movies on the same disc?
Yeah.
But they're all as good.
But they've all been tainted by R.O.T.O.R.
If you are associated with this movie, you suck.
And again, guys, I am legitimately sorry that I made you guys watch R.O.T.O.R.
You were pumping the shit out of this fucking movie. You're like, I
I'm so
really want to watch
excited.
R.O.T.O.R.
It's got a reputation, and I think in a certain aspect, it is warranted that this is like one of the worst movies ever made. But it's not entertaining worst movies ever made. It's just fucking worst
just
movies
crap.
ever made.
Fucker, now you how I feel when I suggested Vulgar.
Well, technically, that was a third-party recommendation.
Galen, we still haven't forgiven you.
Right.
Suck, Galen.
Yeah, but I heard it, I
should
saw
not
it,
care.
and I ran with that shit. I wouldn't shut up until I saw the Clown Rape movie, which turned out to be bad for some reason.
You know, Vulgar was crappy, but it was entertaining and very easy to schlock.
Well,
No, it wasn't entertaining.
And on the plus side, we got some halfway decent jokes out of it, and Craig's neck beard is completely clean shaven at this point.
It's grown back. Time to go to work.
Time to go to work. Oh man,
He wants a fresh
I gotta
shave.
learn how to do this left-handed.
You know, I'm growing a shaft beard.
Like Shaft, the Watch Your Mouth.
Black Private
We're talking about Shaft. Or
No, I mean a beard on my shaft. I'm starting a new Portland trend. I thought it'd be really hipster.
called Just Ball Hair. Go to crypticgenitals.com.
Cryptic genitals.
please don't ever type that into your browser.
So don't forget to like us on Facebook. Go check us out at schlocktalk.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Talking Schlock. I've never tweeted once from that address. And then you can email us too at craigisnotracist@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
I'm not racist.